77 million votes has led to noise, antics, division.
This truck is in honor of Kamala and Joe Biden.
And words with no weight. Thankfully, America is louder. For nearly 250 years, we've been a beacon of liberty, built on democracy and carried forward by the people. Now the shared values that shape this country are crumbling. And what we're left with is a decision. Who do we trust to build America's future? From rural towns to coastal cities, we're raising our voices. For honesty, for strength, and for unity. We're rejecting authoritarianism and demanding real leadership because the future of this country doesn't belong to Washington. It actually belongs to you. Take your stand, add your voice, sign the petition today. Because America is louder. Well, hey everybody, what's going on? Thanks for joining us tonight. So, in the days following the 2024 election, leading up to the inauguration in 2025, many pro-democracy organizations were really stunned into inaction. They hesitated, they debated, and sadly, some even stepped back. At Country First, though, we didn't. And we didn't have that luxury. We understood something fundamental. We understood that the fight for democracy doesn't stop just because political winds shift. In fact, it's when things feel darkest that courage actually matters the most. So while others paused, we actually charged ahead. So we launched new tools. We have this no retreat guide that gives Americans a roadmap for civic action. We initiated weekly days of action to apply grassroots pressure on the House and the Senate where it counts. Many of you have participated. We thank you for that. We built and shared the Town Hall Toolkit, which empowered citizens to confront their representatives politely, face-to-face. And we marched side by side with allies across the country to make sure that our presence was felt. Because real movements, they're not actually built on a single moment. They're not built on a hashtag. They're built through relentless work, through countless voices, through sustained engagement. And sometimes that can get frustrating, but we just have to stick at it. Defending democracy, it's actually pretty easy when things are good, but when things are difficult and forces are tearing at the very fabric of our democracy, that's actually when it matters most. And that's frankly when you're done, when you get all the rewards and you realize the hard work you did. So at Country First, we saw no other option but to double down and to charge ahead. And I served in Congress during Trump's first term. His actions were a red line for me. That's why I voted for impeachment. And that's why I worked with my colleagues on the January 6th committee to hold him accountable for trying to overturn a free and a fair election. And I've seen firsthand what gets Washington's attention. So trust me, it's not necessarily a clever tweet or a viral video. Those help, but it's not that. It's the sheer size and strength of a movement. Trust me, it's when phones are ringing off the hook in congressional offices. It's standing room only town halls that are packed with constituents who demand answers. It's August, by the way. It's a great time to do that. Almost August. They have a free extra week off. So it'd be a good time to do it, right? They didn't have anything scheduled. But it's thousands of Americans taking action at once and refusing to be ignored. That's why today, Country First is proud to launch our nationwide petition called America is Louder. This isn't just a signature drive. It's a movement-wide declaration that the American people will not be silenced by authoritarianism, chaos, or lies. It's a message to the power-hungry voices in D.C. who think they can run roughshod over our institutions without consequence. We're watching, and we will be louder. Authoritarians win when the opposition goes silent. That's the playbook. That's the MAGA playbook. They spread fear and disinformation to intimidate dissenters into giving up. But we're not going anywhere. We're going to speak louder. We're going to organize stronger. We're going to fight smarter because democracy only survives when its defenders refuse to be silenced. And that's us. So if you haven't signed the petition yet, sign it now. And if you have, I'm going to urge you to share it. Share it with a neighbor, share it with a friend, share it with someone in your family who still believes in truth, accountability, the rule of law. Send it to your email list, send it to your text buddies, anything, whatever you can do, the more the merrier. Because when millions of Americans raise their voices together, that's when Washington listens. It's a really pivotal moment for our country. It's only 6 months in. It feels like eternity, but together we can restore honesty in government. We can bring civility back to politics. We can protect the most vulnerable, and we can stand up for those who've been ignored or left behind. We can be responsible stewards of our economy. And most importantly, we can once again put country first. Now I want to talk about what we're up against. So make no mistake, Washington's broken. We know this. We see it every day. And these MAGA extremists have broken it. During their time in power, they exploded the national debt, despite pretending to be for no national debt. They handed out tax breaks to billionaires. They celebrated a billionaire on the stage of CPAC with a chainsaw, giggling at everything he was going to cut while he himself has billions of dollars. But they've done all that. They've handed out those tax breaks to billionaires while working families fall behind. They imposed reckless tariffs that raised cost on everyday essentials. Stuff's expensive. And they openly attack the First Amendment and democratic norms. They sue everybody all the time. Anybody offends them, they sue. They intimidate. We're not going to be intimidated. And now they're pushing their most dangerous assault yet. The so-called, not rightly named, Big Beautiful Bill. Maybe Big Beautiful Bull, Big Ugly Bill, whatever. We got to come up with a good one for that. So let's be very clear about what this bill does. It slashes vital services for seniors, for working families, for veterans, for the disabled, and children. It's having a profound effect on their lives. It strips away access to healthcare in rural communities by triggering hospital closures, like these required hospitals that we have fought. When I was in Congress, we fought every day for. This was always a big issue. Now they're just shutting them down. So you may have to take a 3-hour ride in an ambulance if you live in a small town. It imposes convoluted red tape that's designed to push struggling families off the very programs that are meant to help them. I remember a time when Republicans opposed government red tape, actually, and now they push it if it fits their agenda. This bill is government cruelty. It's disguised as policy, and we must not let it stand. It's giving big giveaways to the people that, frankly, don't even know what their tax cuts are because they have accountants that do all the work. And the only thing they know is if they can buy another jet next week, or maybe it's the week after, and they can write that whole thing off now. So I'm a veteran. This bill threatens the very services that my fellow veterans rely on. It's offensive and it's un-American. A Country First volunteer said it best during one of our recent days of actions. That's what he said. Budgets should reflect our values. Very basic, but very serious. This bill reflects the worst instincts of political extremism. It reflects cowardice masquerading as leadership. Now, I'm not trying to be a downer here. I know there's a lot to be down about, but believe me, there is hope. Even though the bill is bad, and boy, it's really bad, it's given us the opportunity to galvanize around something. Democrats and independents have to unite and run against this bill in 2026. And Republicans of goodwill running in primaries against current Republican office holders should do the same. There are some out there, actually. If you're running in a primary and your opponent voted for this disaster, make it your mission to hold them accountable. It's tough, I know, but make it your mission. Do you remember 2010? So Republicans ran against Obamacare and they rode that message into a wave election. In fact, part of the reason was just because the bill was so big and nobody read it. Obviously, this bill's the exact same way. So it's time for the reasonable majority to return the favor and run against this bill because our democracy depends on it. I also want to talk about, style versus substance. So MAGA operates through fear, paranoia, retribution, and conspiracy. I'm going to say that again. Their uniting factor, the thing they operate in, their whole deal is fear of others, fear of immigrants, fear of liberals, fear of whatever, fear of going to school, paranoia, everybody's coming to get me, retribution, we know all about that. Donald Trump has spent the first 6 months in office only talking about retribution, and conspiracy. By the way, the Epstein thing, that's all they're doing. They can't run away from it. But Country First offers a different path. So we're actually grounded in facts. We bring people together. We reject lies. We don't chase clicks. We create change. And most importantly, we work to build from the bottom up, not the top down. This is what's frustrating because many people expect top down. But the only way to change, especially at this time, is bottom up. It's that democratization of action. We work to empower you to create change, first in your community and then nationally. So what can you do right now? Well, first, sign the America is Louder petition. It's the easy first step. This administration and the extremists fueling it, they only understand one thing. Trust me, they only understand pressure. They need to know that they don't work for Donald Trump. They actually do work for you, even if they've forgotten it. And even if about half of the Republicans have said, and they have, that they work for Donald Trump. You should probably read the Constitution, but whatever, Constitution. Movements matter, numbers matter. So let's create a groundswell of Americans that say enough is enough. When movements grow, those in power feel it. Let's give them something to feel. Second, prepare for August. And actually now, because again, they got let out early, every August, members of Congress go on recess and come home to their districts. That means they're supposed to be available to you, the people. This is our moment. Think back. I want you to think back to the town halls of 2009, 2010, if you can remember those. The Tea Party didn't sit back. They showed up, and actually they got results. They took the House. I was part of that wave. Now it's our turn. So next Thursday, Country First is organizing a national day of action to demand that members of Congress hold town hall meetings during the August recess. If they aren't planning to, we'll make sure that their constituents know. They work for you, and they're accountable for you. They owe you an explanation for their vote on the crappy bill and the impact it'll have on the constituents and district. Don't let them off the hook. And by the way, speaking of hook, they're going to try to pretend like a telephone town hall is the same as a town hall. It's not. It's a cop-out. I did a bunch of telephone town halls. They're actually good to do, but they don't replace face-to-face town halls. But you can use it as an excuse because it has the word town hall in the title. It's not the same thing. So after we finish tonight, I want you to make an impact by doing two simple things right now. I want you to sign the petition, RSVP for our upcoming day of action, and share all this, by the way. And beyond that, don't stop. Protest louder. Call more often. Write. Organize. Keep the pressure on, but take some time for yourself. Make sure you have the capacity to stay engaged, because if you get burned out, that's what they're hoping for. They get energized by this. People like us get exhausted by this. We have to make sure we're staying in the fight. But use our town hall toolkit. Bring a friend to our next event, because movements, they don't win by accident. They win with grit, strategy, and relentless action. So let's keep building. Let's show up. Let's speak with one voice. Let's remind Washington that when democracy is under threat, we can be louder, because America is louder, and we're just getting started. So next up, we asked several of you what some of your biggest questions were, and we're grateful for all of those replies. So I want to answer some of those questions that I know many on this call share. So here's the first one. By the way, these are the questions I get all the time. So, and it's fine. Keep asking them. It just shows that these are on people's minds, and so it's important. So the question about Country First isn't all this just about attacking Trump and MAGA. Look, our focus is on strengthening democracy from those that try to dismantle it. If Trump and MAGA continue their attacks on our democracy, then we're going to continue calling them out for it and working to prevent it. I was elected in 2010. I saw the integrity of Congress erode over my time in office. We must get back to working for the American people and not working for a personality. Another question: is it possible for regular people to change politics? Look, it gets, I know, exhausting. Sometimes you feel like, man, I need to do another tweet or another whatever. And you just feel like you're not making an impact. Look, none of us, including me, none of us can save the world alone. But without each other, we can't save the world together. We're all part of a big team. When I got out of church as a kid, they'd always say, many hands, not many hands like Trump, many hands make light work. What does that mean? It just means like, hey, actually pick up your chair, because if everybody picks up their chair and stacks it, then light work. That's how it is in this battle too. The more of us there are, the easier it is. As I said, movements matter when movements take shape, and politicians, they feel that. Movements are built on making an impact. Making an impact is built on taking a number of steps. Those steps include protesting. They include organizing a town hall, right? They include participating in our days of actions, voting in the dominant party primary. So if you're in a district that only will elect a Republican congressman and there's a competitive primary with a good Republican in there running, I know it may be hard, but take a ballot and vote for the good one. You can write letters to the editor and please sign this petition. When the reasonable majority speaks up, we shift the conversation from the extremes to solutions. So at Country First, we have resources for you to take some of those steps. Another question I get: I supported Trump and MAGA, but the Epstein stuff doesn't sit right with me. Why hasn't more been done to bring the truth to light? Look, I don't know what's in the Epstein files. I don't know if there is or if there isn't a client list. I've heard both. But I know that the Attorney General and the FBI Director were talking a big game for many years, that there was a file full of names with powerful people. Don Jr. was talking a big game for years about releasing the Epstein files. I like to retweet some of his tweets that he put out then. And now they're changing their tune. So they were the ones that called every Democrat a pedophile and every Democrat on the Epstein list. And they made this their religion for the last 6 years. And now they're changing their tunes. When you promise your base something for years and then you say there's nothing to see here, that does create distrust. So we're seeing two things happen that are unusual. First, there is a fracture now in the MAGA base over this. Even if they ultimately heal, the fracture is still there. Second, this is very uncommon in DC today, and it's something that's very uncommon, and that is Democrats and a number of Republicans agree that there needs to be more transparency and that the files concerning Epstein need to be released. That's why they got out of Congress early. Country First stands for truth, not excuses, not cover-ups. When anyone, left or right, center, covers up wrongdoing or flips on the promise of transparency, it's a betrayal of public trust. Integrity has to always come before loyalty to any leader or party. We need leaders that are willing to shed light on all abuse and corruption, no matter who's implicated. Now, regarding the president, here's what we know. He was friends with Epstein. They partied together. He flew on Epstein's private jet, and he spoke admirably about Epstein in the past. The Wall Street Journal's reported that Attorney General Pam Bondi told Trump his name appeared in the files, but we don't know whether it's true or not. The White House would never tell the truth. During his campaign, he made the Epstein files a centerpiece of the campaign and was adamant about releasing them. Now he's changed his tune and says it's all a hoax. The American people deserve to know why he sees a man that was indicted on federal charges of sex trafficking, minors, and committing suicide is now a hoax. This Giselle lady's in jail for a hoax. What part of the Epstein case are a hoax? So you make the decision. This is not the end of the story. Another question was, as a farmer, I used to sell food to local schools, but new deals are going to bigger suppliers or getting caught up in red tape. I could lose my farm. What's being done for us? So look, I grew up in Illinois, and I remember seeing the tractors in the fields, all my extended families, farmers, all that during planting season, the combines in the fields at harvest. Family farmers are the backbone of this country. When government policies tip the scales away from small farms, everybody loses. Kids, communities, and agriculture as a whole. It's a big driver of the middle class, which is suffering under this administration right now. Farmers are suffering greatly under the tariff policies, and they've lost market share. And once you lose market share, by the way, it's almost impossible to get it back. We must support markets that keep local food in local schools, cut red tape, ensure fair competition, not rig the system for the powerful or connected. Leaders should just listen to farmers on the ground, not just large industry lobbyists. Another question, don't all politicians have double standards? Maybe, maybe not, never me. Okay, maybe not all. But I definitely served with a lot of people who did. And it's no excuse. Public officials should lead on humility and accountability. Organizations like Country First should always hold elected officials to the highest ethical standards. And that's what we aim to do. Another question, what should Republicans do if they feel their values are no longer represented under Trump or MAGA? Look, you're not alone. You're not alone. Even people that voted for Trump feel homeless. Many Republicans feel homeless. Many Americans feel that neither party represents them. That's why Country First, we champion principles over party labels. We encourage people to stay engaged, to build bridges, to participate in primaries and local government, and above all, demand honest leadership everywhere. The future belongs to those who show up for it. Be part of that. Another question. I worked for a government agency, but I lost my job and can't find work. There's lots of other people with my skill set now also looking for work. What can be done for those of us trying to work, but we can't find any? Look, nobody who serves their country should be tossed aside. We're seeing the consequences of slash and burn approaches to the so-called government efficiency garbage. It's not real government efficiency. It's hurt not just workers, but the communities who depend on their service. Real pro-democracy leadership means reforms that value dedicated public servants, investing in critical programs, supporting reskilling for modern challenges. The answer is not smaller government, or it's not even bigger government, but smarter, more accountable government that honors those who serve and is right-sized to whatever it needs to be. Another question, why should anyone trust that things will be different if politics too often feels like a broken system? Look, it's understandable to feel cynical. We all feel cynical at times, even me, but history shows that hope and change actually, they don't begin with a great speech. They begin when ordinary people speak up and they demand better. And that's why Country First exists. The reasonable majority, we can shift culture and politics by voting, by engaging locally, by holding elected officials accountable, supporting truth and integrity. And when we do that, when we build from the ground up and we come together, that's actually when things change. In fact, just today, actually, an 18-year-old, a recent graduate of high school, walked into their local armed forces recruiting office, signed up to defend the United States of America, and swore an oath to protect it. Not just one, actually. Many did that today. Nowhere else has that, but we do. And that actually always gives me hope when I think about, can things change? Even this new generation, they're still signing up to defend this country. Next question, how do we protect free speech while fighting against misinformation and hate speech online? Ooh, good one. Free speech, it's a core American principle, but it comes with responsibility. When I was in Congress, I was actually one of the first reps to call out QAnon and the danger that it represented with their conspiracies and misinformation. We need to advocate for transparency from tech platforms, accountability for coordinated disinformation, and civic education to help people spot and reject falsehoods while defending the right to dissent and debate. Dissent and debate's great. And there's going to be some tough decisions that we need to make on AI. We've seen how fast this technology has advanced just in the last few years. I have no doubt that AI will lead to breakthroughs that have been, we've been struggling with for many years, but it's also going to lead to new dangers, and we have to get a handle on it before it's too late. Is Washington equipped for that? Not right now. What should people do if they feel their values aren't represented by either major party? Again, you're not alone. People feel homeless. That's why Country First champions country over party. We encourage people to stay engaged. We encourage them to build bridges. We encourage them to keep engaging everywhere they can. So if you feel like a disaffected Republican or a disaffected American, whatever it is, the answer is the same. Come and join us. Look, I started Country First because really initially I started it as a way to kind of take back the Republican Party. Kind of not an easy mission, obviously. But what I noticed was people were coming, not just disaffected Republicans, we were getting folks from everywhere. And I noticed that what was taking shape was this majority of people that just wanted to defend democracy. And actually, people within the movement that disagree with each other actually enjoy debating the issues. By the way, that's why I got into politics. I actually liked debating, not anymore, because now it's so personal, but I liked it. We can get back to that. So we've created this massive community that's made huge differences. And now it's time to take that next step and do that next thing. And I'm excited to do all of that with you guys. Look, I said this at the Democratic National Committee when I gave my speech for Kamala Harris. I said, democracy knows no party. And that's true. I would go even further and say, democracy really doesn't know any political ideology. It doesn't care what your position is on issues. It cares that you can have a position and have a say. And it cares when somebody's worth billions of dollars and can spend $250 million of their own money in an election to sway it. Failed, by the way. But that's not what democracy is, when you have oligarchs that can come in and sway elections and spend the money. So that's what we're fighting for. As I said, the same speech, we are all part of this sometimes awkward alliance between the sane right, the center, and the left to make sure that we leave our kids, my kid, Christian, a country better off than the one I inherited. And I want to wrap up in saying this. For 250 years, we're celebrating 250 years next year. For 250 years, every generation has had their challenge, democracy or war or whatever. There's never been a generation that hasn't had to face something. Well, our generation is now faced with this fight for democracy. You know, we don't have to sit in trenches in World War I. We don't have to charge beaches in World War II. We don't have to sit in a jungle in Vietnam. We don't even have to join the military after 9/11. At this point, we just have to defend democracy. Is it easy? Yeah, sort of in comparison. It's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of tenacity. It's going to take a lot of patience. But I refuse to be part of a generation that lets that 250 years fail on our watch. I refuse it. God bless you all. Remember to sign the petition and have a wonderful night.